Hi, welcome to this video for comparing bookkeeping software, and the topic I'm looking at today is using the project feature in about different bookkeeping softwares, starting with Sage, and then we've got Zoho, FreeAgent, QuickBooks Online and Xero. Now I'm not going to be able to look at all of the project features in detail. If I just took, for as an example, QuickBooks Online, I could spend an hour alone probably just looking at the project feature. So it's going to be more of an overview and a taster of how the different project features work and look. So let's start off with looking at Sage. Okay, so logged into Sage, the first thing you'll need to do is just check your settings. So if I in fact go to my settings and business settings, and within my financial settings I can select analysis types, and it's within here you'll see some options for cost centers, departments and also projects. I've already actually enabled that, and you can just enable it by clicking on edit. Now I will just come back here and click on edit again, and within your sort of area, if you like, you can add categories. So this is called a project, but what I've got at the moment, I've got three sort of project categories, if you like. If I wanted another project type, I could add a category, call that number 4, and let's just call that housing development. So that's where you actually go to create your projects. There's no project center as such. Now when you're recording your costs, purchase invoice, and then it's here that I go to allocate the project if I've got them set up. So I'll allocate that to housing development, and that's how I can record my cost against the project. Similarly, if I'm actually creating an invoice, so let me just go and put an invoice on here, allocate that to housing development. When you're producing your profit and loss report, you can add a filter. So if I go to add filters and analysis type, then I can select to add a project, and then I can choose the project that I want to report against, and once I apply that, run the report, we can see now that that profit loss report is just filtered, so showing the 10,000 income and the 5,000 expenditure. Now that's pretty much it in terms of project reporting in Sage Accounting. Fairly straightforward, nothing too fancy, but for most that's probably all you need. You want to record your costs against a project, you want to be able to record your income against a project, and you want to be able to report against that, and that's exactly what we can do. So now let's take a look at project reporting in Zoho. Okay, so I'm logged into ZohoBooks now. From the left menu within time tracking, if I just extend that, you've got projects available. So if I just come into projects, it's pretty straightforward to create a project. There's a new project button within there, and you can see I've got one or two projects already in place. And if I just actually open up one I've already created, you can create a project with either a fixed expected cost or estimated number of hours. So there's quite a lot you can actually do within here, and what your expected revenue is going to be as well. If I just come a bit further down, you can see the users that have maybe recorded hours so far, particular tasks against the project that you can record time against. And then if I just come back up to the top here, so this is the overview page, and you've got recorded time, purchases made, invoices raised, budgets, I haven't actually looked at that, and journal entries, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it's like an accounting journal. I think that might be more of an expected sort of journal written, if you like, but I've not actually looked at that in any detail. In terms of actually recording your income and your expenditure, when you're actually in the project area itself, there's a shortcut there, new transactions. So whether it's recording your quotes, invoices, expenses, bills, that's all done there. So that's relatively straightforward because you're here. It's automatically going to record the income and expenditure to that project while you do that. Now, once you've actually recorded your income and expenditure, what I didn't notice, I thought it would be quite straightforward, and the overview is what is the profit loss against the project. I didn't see that here, but if you do come into reports, there's quite a lot of reports within Zoho, and I've actually made one of them a favourite. So there's a project performance summary which is in your sort of projects folders, and if I just click on that, I've not done any modifications to it at all, but I can see it's a summary against all of my projects there. There's the budgeted cost, actual cost so far, differences, expected revenue so far, and we can see the differences and percentage profit and margin all in there at the moment. So that's pretty good. So again, I'm not going to go into the project areas in a huge amount of detail, but we can see that's pretty substantial what we can do really here in Zoho. So now we've had a look at that, off now to look at what we have in FreeAgent. So logged into my FreeAgent file now. If I go towards the top underneath work, we've got projects within there. So I'll just click on projects and open that up. So we've still got 3 projects in place already. Adding a new project, pretty simple. Add new project. Your projects are associated to customers, contacts. So in fact, I'll just put down phase 4 within there. And you can choose the currency of the project. You've got a set number of, or expected number of hours, a billing rate. Let me just put in there 50. And I'll create the project off of the back of that. So now I've got a new project in place. If I just go back to one of the projects that I've got already open, so I've got phase 3 there. So I'll just click on phase 3. When I'm actually within the project, there's a little shortcut to add new items to that project. So whether that's creating a new customer invoice or recording expense and mileage, we can see we've got those options within there. I didn't see a supplier bill, but if you do actually go, if I just come back to bills and select the option to add a new bill. So when you are adding a bill, if I just scroll down a little bit, you do have the option when you're adding a supplier bill if it is actually associated to a project. So that's pretty straightforward, and if you are putting it in, you can choose whether that should be rechargeable or not when you're actually recording, saving that supplier bill. So I'll just close that down. Just come back to my projects. Coming back to that phase 3 project that I've got, I'll open that up. And when you're in the project itself, there's a nice little summary, so I can see immediately any time that's been recorded against that project and what my current project profitability is. So I see I've got income less expenses, so I can see I've got a profit there, 2,600, so that's nice. If I go across the top there, I've got a few tabs, so I've got no outstanding estimates, or I've not created any estimates at all in fact on this. An invoice I've put in so far, any tasks, so I've got 1 task set up against that project. Again, there's my profit and loss, so I can see my income less my expenditure. It gives me the 2,600 that we've already seen on the main summary page. Details of any time that's been recorded, any expenses within there too. I've got a supplier bill there at the bottom, and we can also add some notes in there as well. So all in all, the project area of FreeAgent, pretty good, very easy to use. Again, does everything that you need really in terms of recording your income, your own expenditure, and being able to view reports against it. All right, let's move on now and have a look at what we do in Xero. Okay, so within Xero now, one thing I need to mention is that with some of these files, I'm at the moment paying a sort of monthly subscription while I'm doing some tests. I am with Xero, but for this particular one I'm going to the demo company because in order to use projects I need to move up a few tiers. So at the moment most of the subscriptions are around the sort of between £20–25 a month mark, if you like. To enable to use projects in Xero, I need to move up to the ultimate one, which costs £59 a month. So I'm not going to do that at the minute. No, so if you are using projects in Xero, so you need to pay quite a bit to do that. When it's enabled, you can access projects from the top, and we can look at all projects here. So again, there's quite a few settings in here, and I don't really know a lot about projects in Xero at all. I'm just having a very quick glance. It's pretty easy to create a new project. There's a new project option at the top, so I could just go ahead and sort of create a new one now with a project that was in progress. So I could put on here, let's put there's a contact, which is going to be one that we already have. And I'll just put that as phase 2 and the deadline date, which might be next year sometime. And you've got options of how expenses are calculated from tasks and estimates and who can actually access. But I'll just create it from there. I'm now within that project. I will just come back to projects to look at all projects, and we can see that project I just created under Ash Beetson project phase 2. So your project is associated to a contact, so we can see there's the project name phase 2, and within our projects we can see any projects which are draft and which are in progress and which are in marked as closed. So I'll go into a project that I've already put some entries against. So this one here, phase 1 development. If you need to create expenditure income against a project, that's fairly easy to do. So towards the top right, they've got the option there to create invoices against a project. If you need to add expenses, estimated expenses, you can do that there. So what I've done so far, I just created a very simple supplier bill. Again, similar I think it was to when I looked at FreeAgent. I couldn't see the option directly here to add a bill to the project. There is add an expense from a bill. If I come back to the if I was actually creating a bill at the time, then there is this option to assign expenses to a project. So when you are in the middle of creating a supplier bill, you literally have to choose this option to assign, and there's a drop down where you can then select the project and assign those costs to it. So I'll just come back to all projects and back into the one that I've put a couple of entries against. So again, I haven't got any estimated values. I can see what's been invoiced so far, and I can see any expenses. So I created a supplier bill, allocated it to this project. Any time that's been recorded, you find it within there. Any quotes and invoices raised, so I can see there's the one invoice that I've raised awaiting payment, and we can see the profitability on this particular project. So I can see there's my profit, which is a result of what's been invoiced so far and any costs that have been assigned to that project. So that's pretty straightforward. Now let's take a look at what projects in QuickBooks Online looks like. Okay, so I've got the sample company open for QuickBooks Online, and like Xero, to use projects I've got to go up a tier. So I've got to go to QuickBooks Plus in order to use projects. So at the moment, I think I made a note, it's around £38 a month usually for the Plus subscription. When you have enabled projects, so you can do that from your company settings, then the projects feature will appear in your left navigation. Now if I just come in to open up projects, so I created a project a moment ago, so I've got one project here already. Adding another project is pretty straightforward, so we'll go straight to the new project option, and let me call this one phase 2. And again, we assign the project to a customer, so this is going to add income. We can say when the project is likely to start and when we're expecting the project to be finished by. This is currently in progress, and you can add some notes if you wish. So I'll just click save against that. So adding your project pretty straightforward, and when you actually create it, it takes you directly into that project straight away. I'll just come back to the all projects, so we've got a list of all of the projects we have. So I've got the phase 1 development that I put in earlier on, and I've got phase 2 which I've just created. So I'll go to the one I've got a couple of entries against. So I can open up phase 1. So when I'm within the project, what I have are some few sections that I can view. So I'm in the overview, then we've got transactions, time, projects, project details, and attachments within there too. If I'm actually creating expenditure, income entries, then I've got the option to do that from the top right, add to a project, so I can create my invoice, my expenses from there, and my supplier bills as well. In this overview we can see our sort of current standing of this project, so we can see the income, the expenditure so far, and the profit at this point in time. If I'm looking at the transactions, then we've basically got a detail of all the transactions that have been assigned to the project. If we're using time and recording time, that's going to be visible within here. You've got different project reports, so I could look at my project profitability, which is basically a filtered profit and loss report. And I'll just come back to the project. And you've got a report against any time that's been recorded by employees or suppliers, and you've also got a report there against any time or expenditure that's been recorded but and marked as billable but not yet billed. So we've got unbilled time and expenses, and I don't have any in there at the moment. If I look at the project details, again we've got basic details of the project which we can go in and we can add it and edit. And you can also add attachments there as well, so that could be photographs or perhaps some agreements that you might need to upload, so that's pretty useful too. Not saying you didn't have those features in the some of the other softwares, but I just didn't spot them, and I've just spotted that one there. So again, a very sort of quick overview really of projects. I could probably spend just an hour almost alone if I was going through projects in depth, in detail, but you get an idea of really how it works and what you can see visually. Okay, so there's a very brief overview of looking at projects within our different software providers. As I've mentioned a few times, if I really spent a lot of time looking at projects in each of the different software applications, I could spend an hour on each, making this video about 5 hours long, and I'm sure you'd get pretty fed up after at least half an hour of looking at projects. Sage was pretty basic in terms of projects, almost just like an additional cost center which you could name projects, or is named projects by default, and then you create your projects below. Not immediately associated to a customer. Having said that, for most businesses that would be absolutely ample, because you can create a project, you can record your expenditure against it, you can create invoices against the project or allocate the invoice to the project and then report against it. So what else do you need really? It does exactly what you need for probably most instances. The other software providers, so Zoho, FreeAgent, QuickBooks and Xero, all had their own sort of project areas, where the projects were all listed, and you could look at the project in detail quite easily from one place, and you could actually see the project profitability in one place pretty simply. Okay, so that leads me to the end of this little video. I hope you found it interesting, useful, maybe. And I think on my next video we'll take a very quick look at classes, locations, departments, cost centres, tracking categories, and just see how we use those and we can report against them. Thanks for watching.